Legends. The podcast about urban legends. Meet your host, that's right, Neil Chris Hutler. Hello and welcome to Urbane Legends, the hottest podcast on the internet. Full stop, but especially about Urbane Legends. I am the Eldritch God, Raktuna, and I live in the moon. And with me, as always, is a man making waves, climbing very high up the tree at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. It is Mr.
Neil Herbert.
Hi, Neil. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Good. Yeah.
You got any tips for an old Eldritch God like me that I could? I mean, I don't mind a long-term investment, obviously.
Yeah, I've got some cryptocurrency I'd like to sell you. Yeah,
very
wise investment.
Very
if
wise.
you want to be making big returns, then that's what I'll do.
What I want to do is spend my streaming money / influencer money on cryptocurrency because I'm well appointed mentally to be able to get my head around cryptocurrencies.
I would suggest, you want to get your bucks invested in Herbaterium. It's something you're in on the ground floor. It's a hot tip. Yeah, is that the new cryptocurrency? Hot new cryptocurrency. Yeah, you want to get in on the ground floor here. It's going to
really how much?
You're not going to be able to afford it in weeks. I would say.
How much is Herbaterium?
I mean, it's currently valued in negative figures.
Negative figures.
But, I think you could snatch it up for a few pence per coin at the moment. But as I say, that's gonna go through the roof. It's like Bitcoin. You want to get in there early.
And the thing which is important to me is it attached to the gold standard?
Right, we're going to have to take the conversation about what cryptocurrency is offline. I mean, it's as good as. It's better than that. It's got like a electronic gold standard called an NFT.
Does it actually have a blockchain behind it, or is it just a massive con like that woman did to loads of people where they didn't even have a blockchain? It was just nonsense.
I'm hurt by the suggestion.
You're right. I'm
just
sorry.
Make something up.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I've got to do my due.
Look, you asked for a tip. You
don't live in the moon for 2 billion years without learning a thing or two.
Clearly.
So, apart from cryptocurrency, anything else? Any good futures? Maybe some arms manufacturers. They're normally
tobacco, arms manufacturers.
I mean, Russia are ramping it up at the moment, aren't they? So you would think that stocks might rise in Raytheon or whatever.
Don't worry about it. Weapons never go out of style. There's some little dictatorship somewhere that wants some more. Don't you worry.
The thirst for power never goes out of style. It's like I like to call that the little black dress of geopolitical.
Absolutely.
Geopolitics. So I believe that we are going to be looking at quite a famous one today. I've certainly heard of it. There's a BBC podcast series about it. I'll be honest, probably didn't need a series. It's a little bit dull, but if that's your thing,
there's quite a bit.
Neil, what are we looking at?
So today we're going to be looking, as you say, it's quite a big one. We're looking at the Enfield haunting. So I didn't realise there'd been a podcast series on it, but yeah, there's been. To be honest with you, it was in the papers for a good 12 months back in the 70s. And there's been the BBC series with, I think it had what's his name, Timothy Spall in it.
Right.
There's a movie that they made.
So this is
one of those conjuring movies that's, based on real events.
Oh, really?
And it's, a book written about it by our friends the Warrens, who we met during the Amityville Horror.
So is this would you say this is the most famous poltergeisting?
It's definitely the most famous British poltergeisting, and apparently it may be one of the most covered ones that's ever happened. And it's the one that has the most documented evidence.
Right.
For want of a given use of that word.
And so my understanding of a poltergeist is it's a ghost that moves shit about and can sometimes be a bit violent. Would that be your definition of them?
Yeah, that seems about reasonable. Yeah, they generally get up to a bit of havoc, don't they, and start moving stuff around.
But they don't. But they're not. They don't inhabit someone else, do they? They're doing their own thing. Like I've seen some like pictures of poltergeist stuff where, like, basically loads of chairs and stuff have been stacked up towards a roof. That kind of.
To be honest with you, I'm not sure how robust the taxonomy of parapsychology is. I'm not sure they've got like a Linnaeus thing, like in biology. So I don't know how well prescribed the whole poltergeist, whether that's just a term people use and how well that's prescribed.
Do you think that they're just really into feng shui? Could that be it? Could it be the ghost of kind of quite snotty interior designers who don't like how you've got your house set out? Go, oh no!
It's got really forceful about the fact that you have to
haunt. I'm going to have to haunt this cupboard over to the other corner because it really opens up the room. Could that be it?
It's one possibility.
It's a possibility.
I'll tell you what. Let's look at some of the occurrence and some of the facts before we dive into some potential possibilities. But yeah,
plenty on
put
this,
that one on. There's an awful lot of material, and there's quite often when we come to these things, it'll be, well, I heard that so and so said such and such a thing happened to such and such person, somebody, but actually all of this is quite well documented. It's all happened in a kind of like a suburban kind of council house.
Enfield, for people who don't know, is on the outskirts of North London.
Yeah, and this was on the Green Road, I think. Was it Green Street?
No, that's where the football thugs go.
Oh, I imagine there must be more than one, because, that's in West Ham, isn't it? Okay, so we'll start off with, as I say, there's a lot more documentation of this.
And it was documented in the British tabloids, I believe, so there's your mark of quality.
I tell you what, I've got a story from the Daily Mirror coming up for you. Ooh. So I haven't gone back and got the originals from the 1970s, but here's a story from 2016. It ties in with the film that was coming out, Conjuring 2, the Enfield Poltergeist. And actually it was the Daily Mirror who covered a lot of the story and got some of the photographic evidence of the occurrence.
Right.
So we'll come to that in a minute. So let's just go through that and see what the Daily Mirror has to say, because they were present at a lot of the. There were some photojournalists, some Mirror reporters who were present there when the whole thing kicked off. So two sisters who were apparently terrorised by a poltergeist of children have returned to the scene of the haunting for the first time in 40 years. They were 13 and 11, respectively, in 1977, when there was a series of unexplained disturbances at their home, including disembodied voices and levitation of the girls.
Mm-hmm.
Evidence on record is one of the most dramatic incidences of supposed poltergeist activity, and has been retold in films and books. So they mentioned the fact that it was in that TV drama, The Enfield Poltergeist. Yeah, Matthew McFadden and Timothy Spall. The girls were levitating, and apparently they heard voices. Is that the extent of it? Oh no, there's more than that. Don't worry, we'll come on. There's actually quite a bit that went on for a best part of a year or two. Persistent. So this article just talks about how that they were interviewing the girls who were now in their sort of they'd be in their late 50s now. This was back in 2016. I think this article was written, but they're sort of talking. Thank goodness they survived. Yes, it all died down after a couple of years. Yeah. So you had a chest of drawers shuffling and moved towards the doors. I see you already demonstrate some skepticism there, Chris. One particular day I was seen levitating. Mm. They had an emotional. So anyway, they had an emotional meeting as the film was coming out with the demonologist Lorraine Warren, now in her 90s, for the first time she came to the UK. What kind of demonologist would this be? She's yes. Or did she go to demonology college? I don't know how you become a licensed. Maybe it's like a private eye. You just sort of pay for the license, then it's maybe or a bounty hunter. Yeah, yeah. You can be a dog bounty hunter. So I mean, but to be fair, okay. So 1977, they have. So there's a single mum, and she's grown up. She had 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. I believe the boys were away at school or something. They were sort of saying that some of this stuff was happening. But nobody really gets too much into it because it mostly seems to focus around the two girls, especially the youngest daughter, Janet. So the mother starts sort of getting all of this strange knocking noises and furniture moving across the room of its own free will. And to be fair, she did actually call the police.
Mm.
So, you'll get with quite a lot of this. Why hasn't anything happened? So the mother sort of couldn't really figure out what was going on. She was trying to sort of, it's something that the girls are doing. She's called the police, got them in. And one of the police officers, police constable, said that she saw a chair wobble and slide but could not determine the cause of the movement.
Oh.
Just moved by itself. So you've got, independent police claim that there was something, but they didn't claim it was paranormal or anything, but they did see something. It's a bit strange. But,
well, that's unusual, isn't it? That you would have, someone in what should be a trusted profession, although, that's questionable these days, but and in the 70s and all the way back. But, but someone, a professional person, saying that they've seen something as well. That's
absolutely
very unusual.
So there's some bits and pieces here. There's some interest here. And then there were various people. So over a period of 18 months, more than 30 people, including neighbours, psychic researchers, and journalists, said they variously saw heavy furniture moving its own accord, objects being thrown across the room, and the daughter seeming to levitate several feet off the ground. Many also heard, and they've got recordings of knocking noises in a gruff voice. The story was covered in the Daily Mirror until reports came to an end in 1979. What seems to have happened is there's been a bit of activity that's gone on. Mm. She's called the police because she doesn't really understand, the mother, what's going on. They've just come around and done a quick investigation. It doesn't really say what sort of happened most of them. But then a bunch of, this has then got the press involved, and then you've got a load of paranormal researchers have got involved as well. And they seem to be split between, some of them who think they're making up and some of them who are a bit more sort of believing a bit. Yeah. So the main kind of psychic researchers that they all, two people from the Society for Psychical Research, Maurice Gross and a guy Leon Playfair, reported curious whistling and barking noises coming from Janet's general direction. What could cause that?
It's a pervy poltergeist, then.
It could be, yeah. So, and after they've sort of come in, you've had the chap from the mirrors, or actually, I think the chap from the mirror might have come in beforehand. So he also he put some sort of set up some camera things. So I've also got a series of photos,
right,
of the girls levitating. So you might want to see one of these pictures, Chris. I don't know if you can. If you do yourself a Googling of the Enfield Poltergeist, and for any of our listeners at home, just have a quick image search of Google. You'll see some of you'll see a picture in the mirror as well.
Let's have a little look. See. Is it the one where she's wearing red?
Yeah, she's wearing red.
It does look like she's jumping.
Yeah,
entirely.
All of the pictures, it very much does look like they're either falling out of bed or just jumping from the bed.
That's the action of jumping, isn't it?
Yes. Hands down, kind of like hairs in the air, but
knees up. It's not like she's on her. It's not like she's in like a lying down position and then kind of floating above the bed. She's just having a jump.
Yeah, that's certainly what it looks like.
A poltergeist.
I want you to notice the David Solve posters on the wall as well.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was literally just looking at those.
Interestingly, they didn't form. So for some reason, in the Conjuring movie, they decided to replace that by about 20 crucifixes.
Right, rather than
all the better for being turned upside down at a spooky moment.
Well, I've heard that David Soul can act as a ward against poltergeists. That's just one thing which I read on his website.
Well, it's clearly not working too well in this instance, is it?
Well, she's just having a jump because they've come round. She was levitating, They put up the David Soul posters. The mirror person came round. Can't levitate anymore, so I'll just jump off the bed.
Yeah, because you got to that point where you probably sort of quite enjoy it, wouldn't you? I mean, it'd be quite scary at first, and you'd be like, "This is good." It's almost like the power of flight.
Well, exactly. That'd be great. It'd be like,
thanks, Ghost.
If only someone had done that to Jeff Bezos, he wouldn't have needed to fire a silver penis into the sky.
This is true. Yeah,
he could have just had his little float about in his bedroom, provided he didn't have any David Soul posters up, which I know for a fact that he does.
Yeah,
because he's terrified of poltergeists, of course.
Well, he's been into space now. Do you think a bit like, I don't know if you've ever seen Gene, where you get those people that just float around in mid-air? Do you think you might get one of those anti-gravity packs or something? That'll be his next thing. So he can just hover like about 3 foot off the ground in front of all this stuff.
I mean,
won't put it past him.
You'd need a room temperature superconductor for that, and we're a ways from that now.
Or a jetpack.
Well, jetpack's not really levitating, is it? It's sticking 2 smaller silver penises onto your back or arms and firing yourself.
Sounds like job done.
I think that'd be too dangerous for him, wouldn't it?
Possibly.
Possibly.
Prepared to get up into space, I'm sure. Should be up for a bit of hovering.
Yeah. Maybe you could get like a miniature helicopter thing, like Inspector Gadget.
Coming out of a top hat or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A steampunk top hat.
Oh, God, you're in steampunk.
He could have his aviator goggles on. Could have a little chimney out the sides.
I mean, the thing is that Inspector Gadget, he had reinforced spine, didn't he? I imagine that would be havoc on you. Yeah, I think he was made mostly of metal, wasn't he? Pretty much.
Yeah, it's...
What's the backstory to Inspector Gadget? Was he like RoboCop?
Yeah.
It was just like some guy who got gunned down in the streets of Detroit and they just turned him into like some fucking wacky animatronic.
That's exactly it. If you watch the pilot,
the pilot's quite harrowing.
It's very kinetic and visceral.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, he gets murdered by the triads, and they have to rebuild him.
Yeah, got more Inspector Clouseau as it went on. They realised the comedic premise.
Well, the thing is, there wasn't the market for adult animation that there is now back then. So they after the pilot, they went, look, we like the idea, but if we tone it down a lot, and I mean a lot, then maybe we could sell this to kids. But we need to tone it down a lot.
It's the natural way, isn't it? Because it's like what happened to RoboCop. By the third movie, he was just like flying around, entertaining the kids. Nary a kneecap getting blown out, I could say. PG-13 nonsense, shenanigans. Anyway.
Well, that's what happened with Freddy Krueger as well. Like, started out as a terrifying film, and then I remember by the time I was kind of aware of him and a kid, like, you used to be able to get like toys of him. There was a cartoon, I think. Do you know? Even it's like we're like, you look at it and go, a paedophile who murders kids. And
I was going to say,
we could market that to kids. He looks cool.
He's got some quips though.
Yeah.
That's always one of the more odd aspects of the Freddy Krueger story that you kind of think would, it suits the kind of like original film, but the quippy kind of kid-friendly merchandise,
they kind of gloss over that as the franchise moves on.
They probably don't put that on the back of the box.
Make him into an anti-hero.
I mean, he's still got like little knife, like finger knives, isn't he?
Well, that's it, isn't it? That's what people like. The finger knives, got the fedora, it's got the Dennis the Menace t-shirt, got the pizza face. What's not to like? You've got to remember, anyone listening who's young, you've got to remember that in the 80s,
anything could be turned into a kid's cartoon.
Anything could be turned into a kid's cartoon. Absolutely anything.
Well, mind you, I seem to recall Jack Ripper Jr. didn't do that well. So, it was on after Willy Fogg's 80 Days Around the World, wasn't it? It was short-lived.
The Sweeney Todd babies.
I must confess, when I was like 8 years old, I found that the murders were quite harrowing.
Well, yeah, but they didn't shy away from showing us that kind of stuff back then.
It's the reality of East London life, I suppose, in those days.
Yeah, in the 80s. Right,
we should probably get back on track, shouldn't we? Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I'll give you a bit of a sort of rundown anyway. So there is a lot that was talking. I think what's really fascinating about this story with me, actually, Chris. So, I mean, basically, there's stuff being thrown around. There's kids making like noises or speaking in voices like something out of The Exorcist. So the little kid would actually speak with the voice of a gruff man.
All right, look, when's dinner? What are we having for dinner, Mum?
Had a number of voices apparently, but one of Janet's voices is called Bill. It sounded a bit like that kind of thing. There is a recording actually you can see on YouTube. They came out as part of the that new Conjuring thing. You can watch a YouTube video which shows you all of the. You've seen it. Could
it just be a child doing a voice?
Yeah, 11-year-old. It's quite. I think. Yeah. At the end of the day, that's almost. Yeah. Well, could it be? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it could be.
Right. I mean, so it's not like completely it's still using a child.
Oh, it's just a voice. It's kind of like much lower pitched than a young female voice would be, obviously. So
right. I mean, when I was probably 10, I used to do a good impression of, and I'm sorry, I forget her name, the lead singer from M People. She had quite a deep voice.
Oh yeah, I feel like it's Heather something.
Yeah, it is Heather something. Yeah, but I wasn't haunted, or was I? Don't know.
Or were you?
Don't know.
Could be.
No way to know, is there?
Did you ever have things appearing and disappearing in your room?
I don't like to talk about it.
Okay. Do you have David Soul posters up on the walls?
Of course.
Yeah, that probably stopped.
Of course, it was 1992. We all did.
Yeah. I couldn't get enough of Starsky and Hutch. Was another interesting fact as well that Gozer from Ghostbusters.
Which one?
Actually, so you've seen Ghostbusters? Yes. The bad the lady in that's called Gozer the Destructor or something.
Yeah.
Which apparently comes from the Enfield hauntings.
Oh.
So they were doing
old Danny Aykroyd.
He read up on it.
But he was all over it.
He was well in his wheelhouse, I reckon. Yeah, apparently they had a séance at the house.
Dan Aykroyd did.
No. I doubt he could bother to come over and do that. No, some paranormal, some other paranormal investigators. Well, it sounds like, to be honest with you, they had loads of people tramping in and out of this place.
Yes.
So, yeah, the sort of police come around, and then this chap from the Mirror sort of come around, and they were writing articles about it for the best part of a couple of years, by the sounds of it. And he'd set up like kind of stop-motion cameras where they captured the pictures of them levitating.
That's not good enough.
Or jumping out the bed.
Yeah, have a jump, and I'll take a picture.
But then also they sort of like try and get them out of the house and then sort of, see if anything was happening and have seances and things like that. They had a
priest over, didn't they, as well, I believe?
I don't think I've actually read about that. That happened, I know, in the Amityville horror.
No, there was, according to the podcast I listened to, there was a priest involved.
Oh, I haven't seen that mentioned anywhere. But, so it's that's where Gozer from Ghostbusters comes from. Somebody was mentioned during a séance they were holding at the house, which is good. But I think, when you do, basically there was, what's most interesting is the amount of people who did get wrapped up in this whole thing. So, when you see with a lot of these things, there might be, a couple of people got involved.
Yeah.
But the fact that there was,
national coverage.
There was national coverage. It was in the national press. And then you had these sort of, investigators coming around and getting involved so that then they also attracted the attention, as I think we've mentioned before, our friends the Warrens, who were cropped up in the Amityville house, and they were heavily featured in the movie version because
Of course they were. Well, did they write a book about it, which the film was based on? I assume so.
It's Probably likely. I mean, according to what I've seen on here, though, they actually weren't that heavily involved. So it looks like much more. There was
well, you know,
this chap.
Warren's a very light touch when it comes to investigation.
I'd say more efficient. Just get in, get out, get the job done.
Come in, right? Yeah.
Ain't got time for fucking about.
Are you
this house has been haunted for 2 years.
Answer me. Right.
Yes, I am.
Right, great. See you later, guys. I've got to get to the typewriter.
Got to get to the publisher.
That's all the information I need. Investigation concluded.
But, so the main investigator has been this guy, Leon Playfair.
It's a good name, isn't it?
It's a great one, actually. I don't want to know that's his birth name or whatever.
Hello, sort of Leon Playfair.
It does sound like a character that should be on Taste.
Yeah.
Taste of London or Taste of Hollywood, or whatever they're calling it now. Hi, Leon Playfair. Nice to meet you. Actor and bon vivant and paranormal psychologist. Yes, I was involved in the Enfield. Apparently, also, he, I think it was the same guy. Let's just double check. So I'm flipping about between a few different things here.
Fair enough.
Maurice Gross. Oh no, it's the other chap. Sorry, not Gallion. There was the other lead investigator, Maurice Gross, invented the rolling bus stop advertising.
Right.
There you go.
Did he?
So again, paranormal psychologist, whatever, or paranormal investigator, was in the Royal Artillery during the Second World War and became an inventor and invented the mechanism.
Do you think that he got that from the spirit world?
Do you think he used ghost power?
I think he might have used ghost power.
That's what no one tells you. All of our bus stops are haunted. You capture a poltergeist and you just pop it into a toilet roll and it'll move around the adverts at random.
Well, that's the thing with poltergeist, to be honest.
You cornered the market in these things because nobody else can work out how they work.
I mean, to be honest, they're like kind of retirees, aren't they? Ghosts. They're kind of just looking for something to do. So
if you just have them misdirected, then they're going to cause trouble. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
if you give them a sense of purpose, you give them a job. Yep. It's like, look,
Yeah, if you could move those bus timings around, that'd be good. Yeah, lovely.
They'll get much happier. Much more sense of.
Well, this is why I've been petitioning our local MPs to have a ghost-powered public transport system, but unfortunately, they're in the pocket of big oil / big battery, so they're not interested. But you can't make a profit off a ghost, can you? That's why we don't.
Well, no, it's
even though they are one of the greenest energies.
That, or as we've already established in the Style Cemetery podcast, that'll hellbound energy as an alternative resource.
Yeah, that's what they use. That's what they use in Iceland, isn't it?
Yeah, almost certainly.
They use 99% hell energy.
99%, yeah,
from the volcanoes.
Hey, if it works for them,
it does. They are actually they're completely green because they just use hydrothermal. They don't use anything else. That's the only energy they use, and they've got loads of it. And the problem, they could export it to the rest of Europe, but there's an issue getting it down the cables without it all disappearing. Yeah.
I was going to say, 'cause it's quite a small population, isn't it? But yeah.
Well, and also it's just one big fucking volcano, so they've got loads of hydrothermal.
Yeah, so basically, that's your antics. There's levitations, there's furniture moving around all over the shop, and there's the little girl, there was various spirits speaking through her. So there's a bit of demonic possession going on. Again, I don't know if that's consistent with demonology. There were some deaths during the case as well.
Oh.
So, well, we don't know, but apparently, 2 days before Christmas in 1978, the family woke up to find that the 2 pet goldfish had mysteriously died during the night.
Goldfish
and the spirit of Bill speaking through Janet. Exactly. So goldfish, pretty much that's what they do. They swim around in circles for about 6 months.
Well, you can keep a goldfish going for a while, but I mean, not if it's one that you got from a carnival or a fun fair, then they normally don't last very long.
probably not that healthy.
No.
Well, they used to give them away in like plastic bags.
I had 3 goldfish from a fun fair, and I managed to keep them going for a few years. Yeah, they were all right.
A nice big aerated tank, I would imagine, to get them a healthy lifestyle. And their pet budgie passed as well, but Bill didn't take responsibility this time. The spirit who was haunting them.
So he took responsibility for the goldfish.
Yeah, he claimed responsibility for the goldfish. Apparently, he electrocuted the fish with spirit energy.
Right.
Very much like an electric eel, I would imagine.
Fair enough.
I don't know if he had to manifest into one of the goldfish or just,
Well, or he became water, maybe. I don't know, because the thing is,
gain spirit energy. We could tap that.
Well, exactly.
Use it for good, not ill.
That should be a cornerstone of our future energy plan.
Strategy.
But
no one wants to listen.
That's the Tories for you. Won't listen to using ghosts to run buses.
Where's the profit in it?
Exactly. There's no profit, no interest. The poltergeists in this particular poltergeisting, their powers seem sort of a lot more far-reaching than I understood that poltergeists had. So the possession, that's different.
Like I say,
electrocuting fish with spirit energy. That's a new one on me.
Yeah. Well, maybe there was more than just a poltergeist going. Well, as I say, I don't know how strictly these things,
yeah.
Maybe
it's just a catch-all for any active ghost.
If something's moved around, we can upgrade you to a poltergeist. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have dead goldfish, but I wouldn't rule it out.
When you're at the ghost desk.
Yeah.
I'd like a ghost, please. Well, all right. Well, we can upgrade you to. Why do you want the ghost? Yeah. Run my car. All right. We can upgrade you to a poltergeist. Do you have any fish?
Yeah. I wouldn't put any budgies or goldfish in the.
We will not accept any liability to small pets being killed by spirit energy. Sign here.
So you basically. I mean, we've gone through kind of like quite a lot of that sort of come through, and actually, you watched the video that came out with the Conjuring movie in 2016. The chap who was the reporter from the Daily Mirror seems to, so. The girls are still claiming it was a genuine haunting, and the reporter definitely thinks there's something behind it. And obviously the Warrens. Well, I think Ed Warren said it makes the Amityville horror house look like a playhouse or something. Actually, so I'm going to look for his quote.
Well, I mean, no one in Enfield got a gun and killed all their family. And to be honest, I would be hard pushed to say anywhere where someone had killed all their family is a playhouse. Personally,
yeah, I mean that's there's certainly a higher body count.
Yeah, I mean, what
an entire family versus a budgie and 2 goldfish, then it's certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what he's talking about is the amount of activity.
Yes. Yeah, the amount of documented activity that actually...
Because there wasn't actually that much. I think they're actually horrible. Someone looked like an old lady. Beds banged about a bit, didn't they?
There was a bit of levitating. There was some banging around.
There was a mysterious goo coming off the mantelpiece.
Oh, yeah, but I believe there was... We've seen no manifestations of ectoplasm here.
No.
So Lego and slippers have been thrown around the room. But, we've not seen any ectoplasm. So the lead investigator, I mean, and I believe actually his daughter was called Janet and had died. So I reckon that might have, like Guy Leon Playfair. I've read that somewhere that, he was affected by the... So I think what's interesting here is kind of like how much the people behind it actually believe themselves, because they did actually catch out the little girl sort of playing some of these pranks.
Right.
So a video camera in the room next door caught her bending spoons and attempted to bend an iron bar.
Maybe she'd been watching Uri Geller. Maybe.
So he was getting her to. He bent that spoon through her.
Yeah.
It's good like that. And yeah, one of the lead investigators had observed her banging a broom handle on the ceiling and hiding his tape recorder. According to Playfair, one of Janet's voices she called Bill displayed a habit of suddenly changing the topic, a habit that Janet also had.
Like all kids.
Yeah, and kind of like, but then he seems to sort of like almost infer that this is actually even more evidence that they probably didn't do anything, because he's thinking, well, like, the spirit would act like her because it's using her as a channel for possession or what have you. So there you go. Because they also admitted pranking to journalists, and the lead investigators then compelled the girls to retract their confession. And other people were less convinced by some of these things. So alongside all of these other people that turned up, an American magician called Milbourne Christopher, he came over to do an investigation. He concluded that the poltergeist was nothing more than the antics of a little girl who wanted to cause trouble and was very, very clever. And the ventriloquist Ray Allen visited the house and concluded that Janet's male...
What business do you have here, ventriloquists? Ventriloquist,
well, this is what
business is this of yours?
Well, yours, sir. I'm a ventriloquist. Well, because obviously he'd heard about the voices, so he was there to assess whether or not, the girl was just throwing her voice or something, I suppose. I mean, it does sound like an absolute, mob of people. I want to know what
puppet he had. And if he brought it.
Do you reckon he talked through?
It was like a bear that uses really blue language, dressed as a sailor.
And he wouldn't talk to you directly. And he took. Well, apparently he was associated primarily with the dummies Lord Charles and Alley Cat, and later with the puppets Titch and Quackers.
Oh, him, yeah, Lord Charles. He's famous. No, Lord Charles. That's a famous that's probably...
Lord Charles was the first ventriloquist dummy to have his own personal microphone.
Right. But Lord Charles, I remember about Lord Charles. That's one of the more famous of the ventriloquist acts in the UK.
I do recall there was I do recall from a while back there was a puppet that had like a little monocle, and I don't know if that was Lord Charles. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, so he was quite a famous ventriloquist then. I retract my statement.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So
just some bloke who did pubs
through the magic circle, just
went around
full
pubs.
Of fucking magicians and stuff all crawling around. Yeah, it'd be pretty creepy, wouldn't it? But yeah, they've had magicians around, they've had ventriloquists around. But he concluded that Janet's male voices were simply vocal tricks. And other people have come along and examine the findings of paranormal investigators and criticise them for being overly credulous.
I think...
they mentioned, as you say, I think the levitation thing just looks like she's bouncing off the bed.
A sticking point for me when it comes to believing it is the fact that the girl was seen doing the stuff, right? She was caught out doing it, and also she admitted it. I think, and then was asked to retract it by someone who I assume was enjoying the limelight at the time.
Well, this is what's quite interesting about this, because they've since said, so they interviewed them like a few years back when this film came out, and they've said that about 2% of it was them mucking around, but the rest was just...
Yeah, but what kind of...
quite upset and then claimed, well, how would an 11-year-old kid be able to fake all of this stuff? Now, but what's interesting to me is how much...
moving around is the weird one for me. Like, you can do a voice and you can bounce on your bed and act and say that you're hearing stuff, but furniture moving around's the odd one for me.
Yeah, and how much of that actually happened with people being in the room and things like that, I don't know. So some of it could be them sort of pushing things around. And
well, you
like
would
this.
think. The police officer said they actually saw it happening. So
yeah, it tended to only act when it was not being watched. So the thing, there's things where, like for example, they say, oh, this slipper was sitting over on that shelf, and now it's thrown over there. But the little girl was nowhere near the shelf. As people pointed out, you probably weren't paying attention. Someone might have just nabbed it and then thrown it from the other side of the room. So you.
It's really handy there. It doesn't like being watched. Come back in half an hour, and I reckon some spooking will have happened.
But the interesting thing to me is, because, I'm not really buying into the notion that there is a genuine haunting going on, but the interesting thing to me is how much they actually... is how much they actually bought into it themselves. Because
I think she was sort of like saying now, no, it did happen, no, it was real, and that kind of stuff. Like because you don't want to admit that you're a fucking liar as a kid, and B, because presumably you're getting a cut from the films and that kind of stuff.
Well, that isn't clear as to whether or not they're
it's their story, so they have to, presumably.
There's a certain amount I can believe that they're kind of like, their parents have gone through a messy divorce.
Tension.
It was probably
attention seeking.
It was probably extremely upsetting time, and whether or not they even managed to sort of convince themselves that there were things going on.
If you tell yourself a lie enough, then it can become the truth in your mind. Do you know what I mean? Like it, you can create your own false
absolutely.
memory.
Well, they might have started thinking they were seeing some things, and then, put some other things together, and then as they started getting more attention, started doing
and
more
also
because they get to the point where people were seeing things in the windows and stuff like this, but a lot of people attribute that down to just kind of psychologically, if you're primed to think that you're going to see something, you will see things, and they think as well there could have been things like what do they call it, sleep paralysis or things like that, where they did feel that there was genuine thing. Well, again, the interesting thing to me is how much you choose to believe what you're told by the various parties, and I could buy actually that they that these investigators did believe something was genuinely happening, and I could even potentially believe that the kids
also
did think something was going on, but then started playing up to it.
It's a stressful time as well for kids, a divorce and that kind of stuff, and sometimes kids can, under those kind of circumstances, build a bit of a kind of imaginary world to live in because it's a way of escaping what is quite a stressful and horrible situation to be living through.
Yeah, that's what I've made my mind up about.
You don't know if it's just full bullshit or if they were just emotionally...
Exactly. I don't know if it's just somebody who's really, really kind of like won't actually admit what happened. Because as you say, I think the other thing is... the thing is, there's not a strong... Yeah, you wouldn't want to admit that you'd made it all up when you were a kid. But I think 30 years hence, you might, and with the mother having passed away, you probably think, actually...
you don't know, though, because
people
are different, aren't they? People, some people just can't admit to, having done anything wrong ever. Like people, you would think you or I would be fine with it, but not everyone, is comfortable in... I don't know. Essentially, you're showing vulnerability, aren't you? Really, by saying that I was having a hard time as a kid and I did make this stuff up. And also, then you'd be worried that then the people in the press would be going, "Oh, look at these, they waste all our time." Right? Look. Then they'd get another news cycle out of it, taking you down and that kind of stuff. Because you know what the press is like.
Oh, But years hence, and the fact that you're 11 at the time, I think they'd be struggling to really and the thing is as well, you can't. I mean, I don't know. Like I say, I could believe that they believe there was something happening. Do you know what I mean? And then when people started paying more and more attention to it, they started sort of ramping it up themselves. Because I could see things like having things like sleep paralysis or various phenomena you can have, and then thinking that there was some genuine things. Because I don't know that. Or they're extreme liars, Because I think the other thing is most of it seemed to be happening around Janet, but there was stuff from the other. So there's various other things, like, for example, when the girls weren't in the house, nothing was happening. So they had other people stay around when they weren't there, and then nothing had happened. And then when they split them up, stuff was happening in two places at once. So you kind of think, okay, that's a bit suspicious, and possibly as well, it was a bit of a dynamic between the two young kids. They were playing a bit of a game. But again, I'm open-minded to the fact that they may have actually kind of
bought into it themselves.
Believed something was bought into it themselves, thought that something was happening, but then were sort of making it look more extreme.
Even, I don't know if you could do it now, but like as a 39-year-old, I'm not sure you could do it, but you can certainly make yourself very scared. Like at night, like if it's dark and it's at night, if you choose to go down that mental avenue, then you can make yourself scared, or if you've had a nightmare, then you can be a bit scared to get up and go to the toilet or whatever, or you need to click out of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's even as an adult. So.
There's a non-rational part of your brain that's very
especially
kind of like,
at night, because obviously that's evolution-wise. You know, that's a sensible
you're
thing to have,
vulnerable
because we're not as good as predators are seeing at night.
Yeah, your sight's diminished. You're vulnerable. You're not. Your consciousness is not fully awake. So, yeah, you're kind of like, you're primed to sort of like see things that may or may not be there. But I reckon that's what, because the thing is, you've got like there's various reports from. I mean, certainly what it is all of the neighbours and the press and everyone else absolutely making this stuff up. I can buy that people have convinced themselves that there is something going on. Through confirmation bias and various other bits and pieces. And the fact, what I don't know, what isn't clear, is how much financial incentive there is. Because I'm not entirely sure they did actually make money out of it, because they didn't write books themselves. They didn't. Obviously, with the amateur film, I'm not saying that there's no clear evidence that they did actually get any kind of like financial, and they've not. They've come back a couple of times in the 40 years since, but they've not sort of been too keen to be in the sort of public eye, if you know what I mean. So I think, when this film came out, that was probably quite flattering, being invited by a film studio. But to be honest with you, if I'm a film studio, I'm probably not going to pay them that much money. Cause it'd probably be, just getting them to meet some stars and sort of go back and see their old home and see a film.
Just make it up and just have it like loosely based on it, but not close enough that you have to pay any royalties. I guess the only reason why it would be advantageous for a studio to get them involved is that it adds some credibility and could be good for marketing of the film.
Yeah, and they did have involved marketing, but again, as to whether or not they were paid for that, who knows? But
you would have thought so.
Yeah, but the studio's not going to make that obvious or admit it, because they're playing up very much that it could all be true. And you look at the clip, they do lean heavily on they lean more than heavily on the fact that it's almost probably could be true.
Almost could have been. Could it be?
Rather than the kind of, you never know. Yeah. So, I mean, I haven't seen this movie actually. I saw the other one, and it was all right actually. But
is there any theories as to, are there any kind of why this ghost turned up? Why, what's it about? Is it a demon? Like anything other than it's a poltergeist? Because I seem to remember there's something about poltergeists tend to, or disproportionately affect sort of young girls.
Yeah, I think it's supposedly the more emotional and the more sort of traumatic a time that someone's having, I believe, is supposed to be, that's attractive to poltergeists.
I've been haunted up a few times over the last few years now.
Yeah. Again, I don't know how strict the rules are in these cases, or how much evidence they have.
But are there any kind of
what a poltergeist does and doesn't do?
Theories?
I hadn't I hadn't seen much in terms of why the whole thing was happening. I mean, people just seem to be quite happy to put it down to, I mean, the Warrens went with the usual demonic possession thing that they seem to come out with.
Warrens.
I'm not quite sure why. I'm not quite sure, but there's no real, so I think it's just an element, I guess, with this is trying to see if if they can document what's actually happening and whether it's believable or not. But
makes you question the police, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I get the impression, because the thing is, the police thing is put up because it's a piece of evidence that, on the face of it, sort of adds credence to the whole story. But pretty much, as far as I can see, they turned up, had a look around the house, and then left. Didn't come back again.
Move.
Well, yeah, no, it's on record that a chair moved, but I couldn't establish why. What caused it to move. So they weren't saying a chair moved and it was definitely a poltergeist. They said that a chair moved and they couldn't establish what had moved it. So for all you know, someone could have kicked it across the room. Do you know what I mean?
What? And they couldn't establish that? Like, I don't know what's happening.
Well, no, but do you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't want to speculate.
It looked like the person kicked it across the room, but I couldn't establish if their foot had actually made contact or if it had flown away
The child was rubbing their shin. And sort of
I couldn't conclusively tell if that had made it move or whether the chair had moved a microsecond before to avoid being kicked. I couldn't tell. I work on empirical evidence as an officer of the Metropolitan Police, and I couldn't in all good conscience say that chair was definitely kicked or if the chair had moved to avoid being kicked a split second before the foot hit it.
But I think, again, if you just come round on something which you're going to be completely sceptical about, but then you've got some terrified single mum who's really upset. She's probably quite defensive of her kids. Because I think even the mum was kind of you're not doing this, are you, with the kid? And the kid was sort of insistent they weren't. And it's, except for a little bit that they
it could have been
definitely
something
did.
Out of the Beano or something where they've just tied some light coloured string around the chair and pulled it over so you couldn't see the string. Do you know what I mean?
No, they dressed up the budgerigar like a chair.
Hello. This is quite a small chair you have here.
Unfortunately, the strain on its poor heart, that's what did for it a few months later. So
at this point, the chair grew wings, started flying around the room, and ended up landing on a cuttlefish.
One leg of the chair was there was some fishing line tied to it, and that was tied to a goldfish that was dragging it around. No, because the thing is, you see the clip from the film, and it literally this chair goes shooting miles across the room, and then at right angles into another room, which is clearly not what happened. It moved half a metre or something, to speculate. So, yeah, I mean, the thing is, it could be just something fortuitous that happened at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Because I remember I was watching some program they were talking about. I don't know. I quite fancy watching this, but it's called something like Paranormal Investigations or whatever. And they have all of these people who come into a medium that comes in, and they're like, "Oh, I sense the dark energy and all this."
Does it do loads of the filming in the night mode on the camera?
Yeah, they come and they do all of that. And then they just get in this geezer who's like a bit of a builder or building surveyor, and he goes, "Right, what we got here is that's a poorly cantilevered door there, so that's going to cause creaks." He just comes in and debunks the whole thing. It's just in the most boring fashion possible.
Hello?
And he's like, "Yeah, what you got here is this is going to cast a shadow." And actually, I'm doing that voice, but no, he just seemed like a kind of tired of the bullshit guy. He's quite funny because he just showing clips of him, and apparently he just comes around at the last 10 minutes to wrap it up. And right, yes, you haven't ordered those hinges for about 20 years, so that's where you get squeaky from, and that's where it's coming up and done. Yeah. This needs planing. Let me plane that for you. There you go. That's not going to open anymore. Right, your boiler needs fixing there, so that's what's causing those kind of rattling of the pipes. He just comes to some little
radiators.
Yeah. When was the last time done any basic maintenance?
You've got squirrels.
Yeah, so just comes along. I love that because I love how that premise can survive for more than one episode. Do you know what I mean? It's like the medium comes in and it's like, "Oh, I'm feeling dark energy." This the surveyor just comes in and goes, "Not so much."
Wow.
But yeah.
It's taking all the magic out of the world now. That's the problem with surveyors.
A little bit. Look, I didn't get into chartered surveying to get to the field of parapsychology. But it's where life takes you sometimes. I wonder where he stumbled into that gig as well.
He's probably just doing some work around one of the producers' houses or something.
Yeah. They just like the cut of his jib. I'll bring you. See how long people start watching this nonsense.
Lovely stuff.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, yeah, so, I mean, like I say, there's... But I think, sort of reiterating, what's really interesting is how many people actually did get involved in this whole thing. Normally with these kind of things, there'll be a couple of discrete appearances and then somebody will write a book and try and make some money out of it. But actually,
people got really into it.
Yeah, there was an awful lot of people that did sort of come through. So from sort of tabloid press through to, I mean, I say the whole police thing. I mean,
we only had 3 channels back then, Daniel. So,
well, this is true.
To do.
Yeah,
probably the minor strikes were on, something like that. You need a bit of something a bit.
Yeah, I don't know if we were still having a 3-day week or anything.
Yeah, and there's probably rolling blackouts. So, It was a nation. It was a nation ripe for distraction, perhaps.
Well, 79 it all stops. Thatcher came
that's
in,
why, isn't it?
And she got rid of all of that poltergeist shenanigans. Going right, you can get in a bus stop and start turning around the advertising. You make yourself useful.
There's no such thing as going.
None of this wet nonsense on my watch.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, that is one thing which I will say about
it's workers, not shirkers in the undead community. Just because you passed into the great unknown, don't think you can just leech up at the stage.
It was before Thatcher came in. It was the poltergeist issue was becoming an increasing problem for.
Say what you like about
productivity across the country, wasn't it? Because machines were constantly being haunted, that kind of thing. And then she came in, sat down with the head poltergeist, told him to sling his hook, get in the bus stops, and
the ladies are not for haunting.
And on that note, Neil, shall we go through our scoring system?
Yes, I think you should.
Neil, I'll let you go first for spookiness.
Spookiness. There's bits and pieces. It's not. There's bits and pieces that are kind of spooky here. So, but generally, there doesn't seem to have been a lot of harm occasion to anyone who was involved. So, I think this is going to be a massively hard one. I mean, the idea of kind of like the kids being possessed and putting on the voices, the Exorcist thing.
Maybe they're just doing like the Cookie Monster vocal style from thrash metal.
Yeah, they're just really early kind of grindcore experimenters.
That's why they're kicking chairs around, electrocuting goldfish.
Yeah. It was all a really elaborate art act. They should have gone to Berlin and gone on tour. It would be great. That's what, we found themselves. If only they'd known. It's not... I suppose... I can imagine actually if you were living in that house, and especially I could sort of think that the poor mother probably you would start questioning these things, and I think although you wouldn't want to start disbelieving your kids, especially happening over such a long period of time. And I think when she did, she started to welcome in the more kind of like
just to fuck as long as she 4 kids, divorce.
No, exactly, yeah. Trying to look after them and make money at the same time. And I think that it was a really, really hard situation. I imagine in that sort of case, it's kind of I don't know if spooky is exactly the right word. But it would be, I think, quite a terrifying situation you found there. Where either your 11-year-old and your other 13-year-old kid are playing up so much that they're sort of making all this stuff up, or there is something genuinely happening. And I think you would want to think that about your kids. So it's kind of like, I don't know. It's I think if you were there and stuff like that, I think that side of it I've got a lot of sympathy for. And, I think the kids might well have convinced themselves that this was all sort of occurring. And there might have been things like sleep paralysis and stuff that happened early on that convinced them, and then they started playing up to it a little bit when adults started getting involved. I don't know. I think, and my tone as well to sort of how many people can, adults can come in and tie onto this stuff and give it kind of, a meaning is kind of like a little bit spooky in its own way, but I'm going to go in the middle on this one. I think we could give it a 5. It's certainly inspired a lot of other spooky storytelling.
I mean, it's good that there was no one being harmed. I'm kind of thinking like if you were kind of in the UK at the time, and you're kind of getting daily reports of this happening as it's happening, like in the paper. So it's kind of like in real time you're hearing about this. It's not like some story from the past. I think that'd be, and I think that'd be pretty spooky if you're reading about this, and you believe your newspaper and they're telling you all this stuff that's happening. I reckon it'd put the willies up you. I think, it'd be scary for the mum. I'm going to give it, and it's, it's kind of otherworldly thing, moving stuff around. What does it want? I'm going to give it a 7 for spookiness. So, believability. Well, I think a lot of it can be put down to, for whatever reason, the kids acting out. And, we've discussed the reasons why that's a very understandable thing to do under the circumstances. I probably think that it started out as mucking about, but then they got caught up in it and believed it themselves. The stuff about the police seeing the chair move and that kind of stuff, that's weird. Although we don't have enough details. In all honesty, I don't personally believe in ghosts, full stop, but I'm going to think about this as kind of the story's believability. And, it's got more than most. So, and there's lots about it, and it was reported, and, various ventriloquists came in and ran the rule over it. Yeah, magicians. Butchers. So I'm gonna give it a believability of 7 again. Neil.
Yeah, I think it's a similar one as well. And it's, when we talk about believability, it's not necessarily whether you believe it yourself. So, like you, I don't believe in poltergeists or hauntings particularly. Well, at all. But who knows? Personally speaking. But I think in terms of how believable the sort of things were, it's quite astonishing to think how many people came in and got involved. It just seemed like loads of people getting involved. So I don't know about sort of daily reports through the press, but certainly the Daily Mirror kept up with it for a couple of years. And a lot of people who were involved and investigated were sceptical, obviously, and sort of, debunked it. But there's still enough juice in it that, people can go away and believe if they want to believe. It was enough to get, people around from America coming across over to a sort of a council estate in London. So, yeah, it obviously sort of like intrigued people to the extent that it could be true. So I think I'm going to go with a 7 on that basis.
Neil, reach.
Again, I think it's got to be a pretty high one for me on this. So, it's quite interesting to me. It's something that's happened in somewhere that sort of seems quite ordinary and suburban for us. Been all around the world, so it's been a BBC series. It's been made into a movie, and I think it'd be quite interesting to see a case as somebody sort of like, it's definitely been quite far around the world. I think it's had a lot of interest and attraction for various people, and it's been a lot of different sources. So I'm going to give it. I'll give this one an 8.
I think it's got a lot of reach. It's got, TV series. I mean, if you think about some of the ones, they might be on an episode of Supernatural or something, and that gives them a point. But I mean, this has got films, books, TV series. It's all over the internet. It was reported all in everyone in the 1978 or whatever probably would have known about it in England, you would think, and it seems to have gone across to America at least. Not much to say. I'm going with an 8 as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you think it's like dramas rather than just like a knockoff Monster of the Week episode.
Narrative premise. So, there's not much narrative there really. But, the premise, I don't know how big poltergeistings were when this happened. I'm sure they've been around for hundreds of years, really. But this seems like it certainly what I'd say is it certainly captured the nation's imagination, and it's got the normal. You've got your standard poltergeisting, right? But then you've got stuff like, you've got your add-ons like the electric spirits, energy. The killing goldfish, levitation. Well, that's fairly standard. So it's got bits and bobs, and it went on for a long time. So, I'm going to go for a 6 for narrative premise. Neil?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go a little bit higher, just because the one thing I'd say is that it's it's been made into a BBC drama and a as you say, there's a series of podcasts and there was a film. Now, obviously, they're taking various liberties and embellishments with these things, you would imagine. But no, I think what gives it quite an interesting sort of case is just the notion as to, what's caused the whole thing. I mean, whatever you think about what might have happened, it's an unusual and quite an interesting thing to, you could imagine it just be like some sort of very intelligent kids making up some sort of stories or starting to believe into it themselves. I just think the fact that it captured so many people's imaginations and in quite an ordinary sort of area. I mean, the obvious thing you do if you were writing this, it's like a horror movie, you'd shove it in some lonely house out on the moors that was haunted, and then people go out. So the fact that it was in such a sort of suburban terrace house and all the rest of it. Yeah, exactly. It's a bit, I don't know if you've ever seen Kill List.
Oh, I've been haunted again last night.
Good mixture of horror and kind of, kitchen sink drama and horror. So that's quite a good sort of level for me. So yeah, I'm gonna, and it's the very fact that it has been turned into so many different sort of like forms of work and sort of like proper like series and things, not just monster movies. So I'll give it a 7.
And that gives us an overall score of a very respectable 55 out of a possible 80, using our now patented scoring matrix system.
Does it run on Poltergeist Energy? Can't say. Poltergeist algorithm may or may not be involved somewhere.
So that's this week's episode. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about that, and I'm not sure when this is going out, but I hope you've all had a good Christmas and New Year. And yes, we will be back next week with another urban legend. Goodbye.
Goodbye.